like to invite Patrick Murphy, the Executive Advisor to Peach Aviation, to join me on stage. And Patrick has what I can only describe as a simply amazing career in aviation. He was the chairman of Ryanair when it started as a low-cost airline with, I think, only 6 aircraft at the time. He was in charge of corporate development and strategic planning at Aer Lingus. For the last 20 years, he has advised and consulted to many airlines, investors, and stakeholders in the industry, including LAN Chile, Gulf Air, and most recently, of course, All Nippon in Japan. He's also been a director of IATA, so another fellow IATA person, for a number of years. But for the past 5 years, he's been the executive advisor to Peach Aviation in Japan. Patrick, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And I think you've probably got a better understanding of what works and what doesn't work in the LCC sphere than anybody else I can think of. So I wanted to begin by asking you, what do you see as the difference between LCCs in Asia and the LCCs, of course, in Europe?
Well, what you've seen today in Europe, in Asia, is a large number of low-cost airlines that are some way related to a full-service airline. I'm thinking of Jetstar and the Qantas connection.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
and Emily here with Jin Air and Korean.
Yeah. So you have that pattern has emerged, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Even ANA have set up Vanilla,
yes,
which is an independent, wholly owned subsidiary, low-cost airline.
So they've got 30% of
They have 38% of Peach,
38%.
and they have no functional role in what happens at Peach.
Is that right? So there's no. So you don't, like Emily, have 2 hats and you help ANA and then you move on to Peach. So you're purely Peach and
purely Peach and do everything else. Example: if we wanted to contract with ANA, we have the standard low-cost airline principle: 3 bids, lowest bid wins. If ANA happens to be the lowest bid, that will have to go to the board to be approved.
Ah, interesting.
And ANA have 1 seat on that board.
Right. Right.
It just shows the extent to which the separation is.
Yeah.
No interference in routes, no interference in planning.
Aircraft, because we see a lot of these models where everything is separated except the aircraft purchase. So aircraft purchases, again, is that separated as well for Peach?
But we have an arrangement with ANA Trading, who do the purchasing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a commercial relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's a business deal for them. And it's better for us because we're getting effectively ANA price.
Get the volume discounts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, how do you, Vanilla, so Vanilla is a sort of 100% subsidiary. Do they compete with Peach?
Absolutely, yeah.
And
head on, they're not happy, we're not happy, but we compete head to head.
Yeah, yeah. And in 2015, Peach won the Best Low-Cost Airline in Asia award. And how did you achieve that accolade? What was it that
Well, one, results of the performance that we're getting, right? We have consistently been 5 years in business this week, 5th anniversary. But first year we lost, second money we broke even. We've made profit every year since, and the year just finished. We will come out with another substantial, like 6 billion profit. Our operating margins is now up at 12%, so it's going up all the time, right?
Wow.
And that's a remarkable achievement in its own right. 2, we made a massive amount of publicity and generated on based on the Japanese, the first low-cost airline in Japan. We were the first to operate. And we've always maintained that differentiation of Japanese quality. That gives us a distinction and gets us going that. Thirdly, our focus is on a different market to the traditional markets. We're very much into the millennials, the first-time travelers, the people who are going to travel and never traveled before. And this is an exciting opportunity both in Korea and in Japan and in Taiwan. That's the major market, and that's where the growth is coming from. And frankly, we can't cope with it. So competition is okay in our case because there's plenty of scope.
And that's the market for the future, isn't it, really?
Not really. We started in November. We started direct service to China. It took 4 years to get into it, but we now have services from both Tokyo and from Kansai over to Shanghai. And that's going particularly well since it started. This week we've gone into Bangkok from Okinawa. The airplane doesn't have the range to go from Tokyo or from Kansai to Bangkok, but there's no problem going from Okinawa, and that's our second base. So we're using the principles of Peach's principles of Ryanair. We go with bases. So 5 years in business, we have our 3 bases now. Kansai, number 1, Tokyo, number 2, Naha in Okinawa, number 3. This year we'll set up in Sendai. We'll have 2 aircraft initially based there. 2018 we're up into Sapporo, Shitose, Sapporo. And that's part of the way in which we get utilization. That's part of the way in which we lower our costs. That's part of the way in which we get utilization of aircraft up to give us the ability to bring low prices in.
Yeah. So basically you keep expanding bases, very much the sort of Ryanair European model.
Absolutely, yeah. And Ryanair today, that was, when I was involved as chairman, we started the low-cost operation. We had literally the 2 bases, and that was it. And we had a minimum number. Today, Ryanair has 85 bases right across Europe. And it's the most profitable airline. And
absolutely, we saw it up there with the sort of 41% margin, absolutely staggering.
And there's 120 million passengers.
Yeah.
I'm still a shareholder.
Yeah. Where do you see, I mean, one of the issues we've got in Asia-Pac is regulation.
Yes.
And we've still got all these bilaterals that kind of really restrict expansion. Where do you see that going, and what does Peach need to I mean, obviously for the time being, you'll be working on Japanese bilaterals, but what do you see longer term?
Yeah, but that gives us pretty well open scope to operate from Japan. And within domestic Japan, we're free to go anywhere we want to go to Taiwan, to go to Korea, to go to Hong Kong, which are our primary places. We can work within the existing arrangements that are there. There's no issues there. Right? China has been a problem. As I said, it took us 2 or 3 years to get our operation into China. And that's got to be the growth market for the future. We've got to have, when we're planning that, we're taking in new aircraft this year, and for the next 5 years we'll be.
Yeah, you've got something like 15 aircraft on order, I think, 320s?
We have, yes.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about the engines, because, you know, I don't know if the audience know this, but Ali Bakr, who's the CEO of Qatar, has been very widely reported criticizing the Pratt & Whitney engines on the A320s, saying that they're not delivering what was promised by the manufacturer. Where are you on that?
Well, we've heard that, and we've consulted and talked about it. What we've done is we now changed the order, and we're about CEOs for the next 3 years.
Okay.
And we postponed the decision on the aircraft for the NEOs.
Yeah.
And we won't take a NEO before 2019 or 2020.
Yeah.
With the new engines. Which one? We'll wait and see what comes out. But I mean, there's a lot of testing going on and a lot of proving of these engines. But we're not taking any risks, and we're not certainly going to buy an aircraft that's not performing.
Sure. So it's very interesting. So you got into Shanghai now. I mean, what was it that changed that enabled you to get those traffic rights? Was there some change on the Chinese side, or Japan, or how? What?
Well, a bit of both. The relationships between Japan and China has been always somewhat strained.
Yeah.
Secondly, there's been all sorts of excuses like congestion and difficulties in doing everything else. But persistence. Tough negotiators getting into it. Japanese are pretty good at doing their job. Yes, there can be resistance, but you can't turn down an opportunity. So to do Shanghai, we're flying night flights. Our flights are going in where there are slots.
Yeah.
There are no slots in the daytime. Everybody wants them. We said we don't need it because we're low price, like half the level of anybody else. And surprise, surprise, thousands and thousands of millennials are traveling at nighttime.
On your flights? That's really interesting. Yeah. So that is classic sort of LCC. So that's massively successful, and as you say, it's delivering returns. I mean, Japan's a huge market, and of course we saw earlier it's going to be number 7 in the world. It's always been around. It's always one of the top sort of 10, and it's going to stay there. The Japanese government, they have this plan for 40 million inbound arrivals by 2020 in time for the Tokyo Olympics. Do you think that's realistic? And what do you see as the barriers to that?
Well, it won't be the airline. First to say, Peach was the only airline that was invited to sit on the committee to develop the whole program.
Is that right?
Right, and I think
Very
we played a role.
interesting.
But we equally declared our intent to drive that numbers and drive those volumes.
Yeah.
But the second part of it, which is not generally recognized, the doubling of tourism, but the regionalization and the revitalization of the regions is another part of that same program. So you've heard me talk about Okinawa, and our operation down in that part of the world is going to be significant. And in Sapporo, we're committed to pushing that particular thing. It's not going to be limited by the airlines, possibly to some degree, but by accommodation. And we're one of the driving forces to get all of that accommodation provided. And it's
hotel rooms.
Now, you see, there's the thing again. We think hotel rooms, and we have an arrangement at the moment for hotel rooms.
Yeah.
But we want hostels. We want what the millennials and the young people want, and they are going to that kind of accommodation, which are quite not available on hotel booking engines.
Yeah.
But we have got now partners that are coming in to do that, and we will have a range of alternative accommodation, which is going to be critical to achieve those kind of targets.
Yeah.
The hotel development does not take place without that kind of development.
Yeah. And I suppose sort of metro congestion on the big airports doesn't actually concern you so much because you're going for the second bases anyway, so it's a sort of a different kind of a strategy.
Well, we're the first low-cost airline into APAC.
Is that right?
But we do it because we go at nighttime.
Right.
We're not causing any problem for the regulatory bodies doing so. So our operations come from, some of our operations come from APAC.
Yeah.
So it's the first low-cost airline into APAC.
Yeah.
And hopefully more as things open up as we go forward. So we have a problem. Every one of our airports, there's a congestion. If you're at the peak hours, you're into a congested situation.
Yeah.
But we're trying to minimize that, and things like, for example, we still practice the situation of getting 25-minute turnarounds. Because if you have a slot, you have to have an arrival slot and a departure slot. Now, we can find opportunities within that range to be able to turn around aircraft and get moving fast. In Kansai, we have eliminated, we've got our own independent terminal. It's a low-cost operation. It started 5 years ago with 10 gates. We now just expanded it to 17 gates.
That's very interesting.
And there's huge congestion in the morning between 06:30 and 07:30 because all the flights are coming out of there. And they're all at each gate, and people walk to them, so it can be quite a bit congested. But it delivers on the requirement, and we can get departures 5 minutes apart.
That's astonishing. And so distribution, I mean, Japan has traditionally been seen as a kind of a traditional distribution, lots of use of agents, etc. But it sounds to me like yours is going to be completely different to that.
Totally different. We already are 93% online, direct.
93% direct.
Building the mobile, and we're getting much more increase in the activity on the mobile, and that's our next move to develop that.
Yeah.
And part of that process is to get the customer to come direct to us. Because we're starting to think, and just as we do at Ryanair, like retailers.
Yeah.
We're not just selling a seat, but we're selling a whole range of different things, right? And you've got to focus on that. Back to what we heard Evelyn talk about, bundling, bundling. We're not doing the complete bundling. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if you give a business traveler a time that says, okay, here's your flight, we'll give you a priority seating, we'll give you a front row seat, we'll give you the ability to change your ticket at no cost, there's your price, right? It's more than the original base price, right? But that what a businessman wants, the ability to change his ticket, the ability to get priority, the ability to be up front, he doesn't have any need for baggage.
Yeah.
Right? Families traveling on leisure holidays to sun destinations, seat, reservation reserve seat is a pretty important thing.
Yeah,
so
sitting
they
together.
all sit together.
Yeah.
And we provide that, but you pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't have to buy the whole unbundled package to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that increases the total revenue. All right? And that's where you get the high margins. I mean, we're up at 19% in ancillary revenues already.
Wow.
And we're going to catch up with Ryanair's 30% one day.
That's very, very interesting.
But that's what we have to try and do. Because the margins, of course, from ancillary revenue are significantly better than the margins from the flights.
Yes.
And that's significant. You know, a commission-based product, whether it's a hotel or a transport or a downtown transport or any of that, yes, we have to, the customer pays to the hotel, but we're getting 20% or 80%, in other words, coming directly to us because it doesn't cost us a small amount to do that. But the effective margin for us is 80%. Margin on baggage is about 50% because you have the cost of carrying the bags and loading them. Margin on meals and in-flight entertainment is around about 45 to 50% as well because you have to buy the stock and provide that. But still, you can see how significant it is. But if we were doing traditional and giving free meals, there's no margin.
No, exactly. So that accommodation part, do you go out and contract that yourselves?
Yes.
Right.
Sorry, no, we get third parties.
Oh, you go through third parties?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a number of pretty good partners.
Yeah.
But there's always negotiation. There's always changing. We're always doing new things.
Yeah.
And we're now doing into the big data and all of that personalization of data.
Yeah.
And that means we've got new type of partners that can come in to work with us, right? For example, we work with the cities in Japan to talk about promoting the destination. Right?
Yeah.
People say, I'm going to go somewhere, right? What am I going to do when I get there? We can tell them. Who's paying for it? The city. All right? We offer discounts in department stores and all sorts of other things that you couldn't.
Yeah.
But we do that in the booking process. So they have, oh, I didn't expect that. That's great. I've got something extra. And you get the reaction, and we get word of mouth, and we get
And you
WhatsApp,
get the commission
and
and
we
the,
get
or
the
the other
Snapchat,
margin.
and we get
Yes.
all of these communicating. Said,
Yeah.
listen, did you know when you go on Peach, they have this package or that package?
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
is making the publicity, and that is making and generating the activity, and of course, generating the bookings.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fascinating, Patrick. Thank you very much. And I think Japan's particularly interesting because I remember when LCCs first started in Japan, everybody said, oh, it's a very, very traditional market. It's not going to work there. But you've proved them all wrong, so so well done.
Started in Europe, we proved them down because nobody thought it would work in Europe either.
That's true, that's true. So thank you very much, Patrick. I'd like to say thank you to Patrick. And if you could come up after...